Hi everyone, welcome to Philosophy Smash with Henry. Today we're thinking about prayer. Lots of religious people practice prayer as a way of communicating with God, but is it actually useful? Think of it this way. If God doesn't exist, then there's no one to pray to, so prayer doesn't do anything. But if God does exist, things still aren't so simple. Think of it like this. If what I'm praying for is good, then surely God was going to just do it anyway, because God is good. But if what I'm praying for is bad, then God wouldn't do that, even if I asked them nicely. So again, there's no point praying for something bad. So if it's good, then God was going to do it whether I ask or not. If it's bad, God won't do it whether I ask or not. So asking through prayer makes no difference. This is called the puzzle of petitionary prayer. What do you think about this puzzle? Is it right that praying doesn't do anything? And if so, why do people pray? Take a second and decide what you think. Well, with me to help answer these questions is Martin Pickup. Martin is a philosopher at the University of Birmingham, and he's an expert in the philosophy of religion. Martin, welcome.
Hi, Henry. Hi, everyone.
Okay, Martin, I'm going to give you 45 seconds to answer the question, is prayer useful? And we are timing you. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go.
Right. Okay, 45 seconds. So, as you said, Henry, there's this puzzle about what the point of prayer is, or whether prayer could ever make any difference. And it's a puzzle that religious believers also have too. How could it even make sense for a religious person to pray if it seems like what they're doing isn't ever going to make a difference? It's worth saying that this is a really important problem because lots of religious traditions and lots of religious people do think that praying makes a difference, and it's a big part of what they do in their religious activities. So I think it can make sense for religious people to pray, but it takes a lot of thinking about to work out why. And this thinking about involves kind of thinking about the concept of God we've got involved, and also thinking about what it takes for something to be valuable. So there's some good philosophical work to do to work out how it could be that prayer makes sense.
Okay, that was 53
Oh, a
seconds.
bit too much.
A little bit too much, but not bad, not bad. We've seen worse, that's for sure. Um, okay, so we've got this problem that even if God exists, you might think prayer doesn't do anything. What kind of solution do you think this problem might have?
I think to try and solve this problem, a religious believer is going to have to reflect on what they think God is like and how they think God would act. Because in the background here, I think what's going on is in setting up the problem, we're thinking about God as something like some calculating machine in the sky. So you put in the values of stuff and God just chooses whatever's best. But that account of what God does makes God into some sort of calculating machine rather than a person who might have desires or wishes for things to happen. And it also requires events that happen to be really easily compared for us to be able to say in every circumstance which event is most valuable and be able to compare the values of different events in a straightforward way. And if you're a religious believer, you might have reasons for thinking that neither of those things is true.
Oh, so is it like you might say, if it's good, then God was going to do it anyway. If it's bad, then God wouldn't do it. But we shouldn't think of God just sort of sitting up in the clouds, deciding what's best, and then just doing that. Is that the idea?
Yeah, and saying that God's just going to do what's good also suggests that it's always obvious what's good. What's better, the Mona Lisa or the latest John Wick film? Some people would say probably the Mona Lisa, but sometimes it's hard to compare values. Like different things can be differently valuable, and maybe there's no straightforward way of saying what's best all the time. The world is more complicated than the puzzle makes it seem, particularly when we're talking about what's valuable and the way that God would choose to act.
Yeah, I know perfectly well which is better out of Mona Lisa and John Wick. So someone might say that the point of praying isn't so much to ask God for things, but rather to fulfill other purposes.
Yeah, I think that's true. But I think there are lots of different types of prayer. So you can have the sort of prayer where you're expressing gratitude to God or asking for forgiveness for God. Or there's certain sorts of prayer where what you're really doing is trying to find a certain sort of stillness or peace in God's presence and that sort of thing. And none of those seem to require asking God for stuff or making a difference to what's happening in the world. So that's true. But there are these different types of prayer, and each prayer has got a different sort of purpose. And it's also true that lots of religious believers do pray for stuff to happen. So there is that type of prayer, which is what we call petitionary prayer. And if that would never make a difference, if it would never be the case that praying changes what's going to happen, then that type of prayer looks like it wouldn't have any purpose. And bear in mind that like when push comes to shove and religious people and sometimes non-religious people are facing a really traumatic situation, like someone's got a cancer diagnosis in the family, people do pray. And when they pray, I think they really want to make sure that the good outcome happens, right? That they want to change what's going to happen.
So, if there was just one idea that you'd like people to walk away with today, what do you think it might be?
So here's one idea. I think using philosophy and in general, just thinking carefully about the claims we make in lots of different parts of our lives is really important. And that includes religious claims. Whether you're religious or not, it can be really helpful to use philosophy as a tool to think hard about these sorts of issues, to try and understand the world and the way that we relate to it.
Okay, thank you, Martin, and thanks everyone, and keep thinking.